This project that they were still pretty much developing now, so it's not a project that ended, it is a process that is still ongoing, is about organic matter and circular economy. And we are looking at communities in field cycles. And I will just try to summarize this process. Who are the people who are involved? Who are the communities who are involved in it? What was our approach to a particular program of organic matter and its recycling? And what are the first results of this project? So what is all this about? It is about the organic flows from agriculture to the city. Okay, so every city, I mean, cities by definition are not producing everything that they consume. No, a city by definition is dependent on other territories to supply what the city needs to survive. And a very important input for cities is obviously food. So there's organic matter imported in the form of food to the cities. And the way it normally works is that the food is produced with input from elsewhere. So input in the form of nutrients, in the forms of mineral or chemical input to agriculture. And on the other hand, the organic matter, once it is metabolized by the city, is flowing out of the city, but not back into agriculture, but into landfills, into biogas conversion, or as in the case of Brussels, incineration. And basically the organic matter, the nutrients that are contained in that organic matter are then lost. So the project is about changing this kind of scenario, which is not sustainable because both of these black arrows can't be, perpetuated continually because the nutrients are existent on this planet in a limited supply. So we need to kind of make them more circular. We need to stop nutrients flowing out of the city and out of the agriculture. We need to stop being dependent on chemical and mineral inputs to agriculture and kind of find a way in which the nutrients flow back from the city to agriculture. Very simple idea, an idea that has worked for thousands of years, in as long as cities existed. Since roughly, 50, 60 years, we departed from this circular organization of the metabolism between agriculture and cities. And this project is about finding ways to go back to this circular organization of nutrient flows, circular organization of organic matter. So in this project is situated in Brussels. So this is a picture of the incinerator in Brussels. Brussels, the capital of Europe, does not have a recycling, like a functioning recycling strategy to organic waste. We currently incinerate the organic matter that is contained in the residual waste of households. And Brussels is not the only city that is not recycling organic matter. Cities like Paris don't have a proper, cities like Warsaw. So big cities in Europe do not have a functioning recycling system for organic matter. Other cities and countries are doing much better. Italy has among the highest recycling rates, for example. But there's really big cities like Paris, Warsaw, Montreal, for example. We're now discussing also with Montreal. Have these incinerators, they collect household waste, and then they just can't get the system reconfigured in a way to make it more circular. It's not that the cities don't try to find a better solution. It's just that it's very complicated once you have like a big city like Brussels or like Paris to reconfigure the system, because there's a lot of different actors involved. It's a very complex machinery. There's big investments being made. There's not only environmental, but there's also economic issues. So, it's not easy to go from one system to another. Who are the collaborating communities, and why is this about communities? In the absence of an institutional or governmental approach to the recycling of organic matter, in Brussels, it was communities who just said, this is not acceptable, we need to do something about it. I'm feeling bad as an individual of throwing my organic matter in the bin because it goes to incineration. I want to do something more sensible with this organic matter. And all over the city, communities, neighborhoods started to come up with solutions, really like bottom-up solutions, in the form of community composts. Okay, so people just organize themselves on the scale of a street, on the scale of a housing block, for example, and say like, okay, we have this patch of land, somebody has a garden that is accessible to the neighborhood, and they started composting the organic matter. So this project is really about taking all these initiatives that exist already and kind of try to upscale them and make this decentralized solution the solution for Brussels, or part of the solution for Brussels. Okay? So far, decentralized composting exists, but it is considered by the government, by the administration in charge of the environment, it is considered as waste prevention. It's not actually the waste management strategy, it's just like waste prevention. And we want to make a decentralized, like a decentralized management of organic matter part of the management system. So in addition of these communities, these local communities and NGOs that work with community composts, the project grew because we also integrated the university, the university that was collaborating with the TIRAS project, the ULB, my employer. Why did we need the university? Because the complexity of the environmental aspects required that very quickly the narrative that the community organizations with their composter idea developed needed to, they were confronted with very technical discussions about biogas, about CO2 emissions, about the logistics of a system of a regional scale. So the university helped kind of to frame the narrative, to refine the strategy, and to think about things at the regional scale. And then afterwards, very importantly, we also integrated in this project the regional agency in charge of the waste management and the regional agency in charge of the environment. And that was very, very difficult because these two agencies, they really don't like each other that much. So it was very much also about finding consensus between these two public regional agencies. What is the basic idea? So as I said, like the idea is about circularization of organic waste. It is, and then once you go into the details, sorry, this is in French. It is also about changes in agriculture, because you can't possibly recircle organic matter if all your onions come from China. Because then like it doesn't make sense on any level to re-import your compost to China. So it is also about bringing agriculture closer to the urban agglomerations, because that's the only way of really feasibly organizing the logistics of bringing the compost back to agriculture. It is about not saying no to industrial solutions of dealing with organic matter, because there are certain organic flows in the city that can't be composted and that are not in the scope of community composts because of regulation, because of the content of them, because people, for example, restaurants typically, they don't have the time and they don't have the possibility, and also in terms of regulations, it's very difficult for them to have their own compost in the backyard. So there needs to be certain industrial solutions like biogas or like industrial composting sites for them. So part of the project is also about how to incorporate industrial solutions in a decentralized system. So that's also part of the questions that we need to address. Then how to organize the decentralized treatment. It's nice that every street would have a decentralized compost station, but there needs to be networking, there needs to be training, there needs to be certain things that have to be organized on a regional level. And for example, bringing the compost back to agriculture is something that needs to be organized on a regional level, and not like every street finding like a farmer that needs their compost. In terms of economies of scale, you need to collect the compost of all the different stations and then bring it together with bigger trucks, for example, in order to avoid transportation. So that's kind of like a very rough idea, and that all the actors agreed upon very early in the process, and we are now kind of fleshing out all these different elements. We gave ourselves like 3 years to study, to come up with specific solutions to each of these different elements of a reform of the system. But this is kind of something that that everybody agreed on from the beginning. So I said the problem is in Brussels, and just to give you an idea of how the situation looks like today. So about 80% of the organic matter produced by Brussels is incinerated, and that's really, it doesn't make sense on any level because it's water. 80% of that organic matter is water, and you're collecting water, bringing it to an incinerator. There's no energy content in this organic matter. It's just a waste of energy and just a waste of the nutrients contained in that. Then you have today you have around 10% that is already composted by private households in their garden. So it's just people that have a bit of space in their garden. They're composting their own organic matter. Then there's 10% of community composts. So it is already quite a big amount of quite a big proportion of the production of organic matter that is already composted decentrally, and 1% is currently carried to a biogas station outside of Brussels. So this is the situation today. What was the context of this project? There's a lot of interest, as you all know, in circular economy at the European level. There's a lot of interest for circular economy also at the regional level. So Brussels, in March earlier this year, adopted a regional plan for circular economy. So, there's a lot of politicians that are interested in these type of ideas, and there's also money for, implementing it. But what we notice is that if you say, okay, we want circular economy in the context of organic matter, really you haven't said anything. Like, what does that mean, circular economy of organic matter? Does it mean you build a biogas plant? Does it mean you build an industrial compost station? Does it mean you have a decentralized system? Like, it's not, circular economy of organic matter is not, doesn't define the solution. You really need to think about what do you want? Who are what are the interests of the different communities? And then you have a solution. Just saying circular economy of organic matter is not definitely enough to define how you want to reform the project. So this is kind of what we try to then explain to the region, saying, okay, it's very good that you want circular economy, but what kind of circular economy do you actually want? Who are the people that will benefit from the kind of circular economy that you have in mind? What was the approach of our project? Why was it done in that specific way? So as I said earlier, like a management of organic matter in Brussels is a very complex issue, because Brussels is obviously a very complex city, but any management system on regional scale involves so many types of expertise, so many types of agencies, so many geographic levels. So you have the neighborhood, you have municipalities, you have regional authorities, you have hygiene issues, you have economic issues, you have environmental issues, logistical issues. So you have a lot of, and then you have like the community participation. So nobody really is in charge of reforming the system, because the system itself, the management system of organic matter, is divided into so many actors and so many types of expertise. So our role is really just to bring these people together in one room and find a process and kind of a common direction in which we can negotiate the change. So when we started, it was really frustrating because people weren't speaking the same language. Like even though they were addressing the same topic, they weren't able to articulate what they really wanted. So just to give you an example, some people said the organic matter is there to produce energy for the city of Brussels because that's sustainable. And then the other part of the group was saying the organic matter is there to be reinfused to agriculture because that's sustainable. And it turns out that these things may be incompatible depending on the technical solution that you adopt. So we really had to negotiate what we actually wanted. It started with community organizations, then we involved the universities, the public agencies, and now we are talking with other NGOs, but also municipalities in which we do pilot projects. So we're now in a phase, as I said, like we look at the different elements of the reform of the system, and we're having pilot projects in specific neighborhoods, but also at the regional scale. How was it funded? It wasn't a lot of money involved, so I can quickly go at it. But this is interesting. How does this project care about communities? Because it comes from the communities. As I said, there's no institutional approach currently to the organization of organic matter. So it really is about all these different neighborhoods that already adopted a system, but this map didn't exist. It was just like, it was happening everywhere, but similar to like this interactive mapping. Now we know that it exists. We can go to regional authorities and say like, okay, there is an organization now that is working as a platform for all these decentralized compost stations, and you can really say that this is part of the solution, or this could be upscaled into the actual solution. And each of these dots on the map that represents a community compost is a community of people. They are meeting there. They are, taking part of the solution in their own hands and working towards like really something very positive. They get to know each other. There's also a huge social element, obviously, involved in community composting. I will finish here. The one thing that is missing is the key learning. Maybe to take it a bit. On the personal level, like stopping to think about the reform of these systems as something that you can solve intellectually, and more something that is a process that you can solve collectively. I think that was a very, very important lesson for me personally. And one nice thing about these community composts is that people participate and actually understand in what they are participating. They actually understand the process of composting. They actually, they know what they are participating in. Unless if you give them a technical solution that they don't understand, sooner or later you will have these perverse effects that they're trying to do something good but actually don't understand what they're doing, and then you end up with a negative result. So we are trying to tap into this community language, knowledge, and find a solution in which people not only participate, but also understand in what they are participating. Thanks for that.